Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Statistical Analysis in Discourse Analysis. Statistical analysis in discourse analysis refers to the use of quantitative methods to examine patterns, frequencies, and distributions of linguistic features within discourse. Although discourse analysis is primarily a qualitative field that focuses on interpreting language in its social context, integrating statistical tools can offer valuable insights by revealing underlying patterns that might not be immediately visible through qualitative analysis alone. These quantitative methods help to support, challenge, or refine qualitative interpretations of discourse, offering a more comprehensive understanding of language use in different contexts. Statistical analysis in discourse studies often involves counting the occurrences of particular words, phrases, or linguistic structures and examining their relationships to social, cultural, or ideological factors. This approach, often called corpus-based discourse analysis, provides a way to combine the richness of qualitative discourse interpretation with the rigor of quantitative analysis. The role of statistical analysis in discourse analysis. Statistical analysis in discourse analysis serves several key purposes, particularly when dealing with large datasets, such as media corpora, social media interactions, or political speeches. Some of the main roles of statistical analysis include: 1. Identifying linguistic patterns. Statistical analysis allows researchers to identify recurring linguistic patterns, such as the frequency of certain words or phrases, collocations, words that frequently appear together, and syntactic structures. These patterns can reveal how language is used to frame specific topics, reflect ideologies, or construct identities. Example: in a corpus of political speeches, statistical analysis might show that certain terms, such as freedom and security, frequently co-occur, suggesting that these concepts are often framed together in discussions of national defense or civil liberties. Point 2. Exploring power relations and ideology. Statistical analysis helps to uncover how language reflects power dynamics and ideological structures by quantifying how often certain terms or themes are associated with particular groups or contexts. This can provide evidence for how discourse is used to reinforce or challenge dominant ideologies. Example: a statistical analysis of media discourse might reveal that terms like illegal immigrant or asylum seeker are used disproportionately in negative contexts, reinforcing particular ideological frames around immigration policy. Point 3. Comparing discursive strategies across contexts. Statistical analysis can be used to compare discursive strategies across different contexts, time periods, or groups. By analyzing how language use changes depending on the audience or situation, researchers can gain insights into how discourse is tailored to specific social or political objectives. Example: a statistical comparison of speeches by different politicians might reveal that one candidate uses more inclusive language, e.g., we, or are, when addressing the general public, while another candidate uses more exclusionary language, e.g., they, or them, when discussing opposition groups. Common statistical techniques in discourse analysis. Several statistical techniques are commonly used in discourse analysis to examine linguistic patterns and relationships. These methods range from basic frequency counts to more complex multivariate analyses. Point 1. Frequency analysis. Frequency analysis is one of the most basic statistical tools in discourse analysis. It involves counting the occurrences of particular words, phrases, or linguistic structures within a corpus. This technique helps to highlight what is emphasized or downplayed in a given discourse. Example: in an analysis of corporate social responsibility (CSR) reports, a frequency analysis might show that terms like sustainability and community impact are used far more often than terms like profit or costs, reflecting the company's public emphasis on social values over financial concerns. 2. Collocation analysis. Collocation analysis examines how frequently certain words appear together, revealing patterns in how ideas are connected in discourse. This technique is particularly useful for identifying how concepts are framed or associated with one another. Example: in a study of news coverage on climate change, collocation analysis might show that words like climate crisis frequently appear alongside terms like urgent or catastrophic, highlighting how the media frames climate change as an immediate and severe problem. Point 3. Concordance analysis. A concordance analysis shows all the instances where a particular word or phrase appears in a corpus, along with its surrounding context. This allows researchers to examine how specific terms are used in different situations and to identify any patterns or shifts in meaning. Example: a concordance analysis of the term freedom in political speeches might reveal that it is used in various ways, sometimes referring to civil liberties, sometimes to economic freedoms, depending on the speaker's ideological position. Point 4. Keenness analysis. Keenness analysis compares the frequency of words in one corpus against their frequency in another, identifying words that are statistically more frequent, or less frequent, in one dataset compared to another. This technique helps to uncover the specific linguistic features that distinguish one set of texts from another. Example: in comparing speeches from two political campaigns, a keenness analysis might show that one candidate frequently uses words related to change and progress, while the other emphasizes words like tradition and stability. 5. Cluster analysis. Cluster analysis groups similar items based on their characteristics. In discourse analysis, cluster analysis can be used to group words, phrases, or themes that frequently appear together in a dataset. This helps to identify clusters of ideas or discursive strategies that might not be immediately obvious from a qualitative perspective. Example: a cluster analysis of social media posts on mental health might reveal that terms like self-care, anxiety, and therapy often cluster together, suggesting that online discussions of mental health are frequently framed in terms of individual coping strategies. Point 6. Sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis involves classifying the emotional tone of a text as positive, negative, or neutral. While sentiment analysis is more common in computational linguistics, it can also be applied to discourse analysis to explore how emotions are expressed or manipulated in discourse. Example: a sentiment analysis of online discussions about immigration might show that negative sentiment dominates when discussing policies, while positive sentiment appears more frequently in discussions about personal stories of migrants. Examples of statistical analysis in discourse studies. Example 1. Statistical analysis of media bias in news reporting. A researcher analyzing bias in news reporting about the refugee crisis might use frequency and keenness analyses to compare how often different terms related to refugees are used in liberal versus conservative media outlets. Statistical analysis could reveal that terms like migrant are used more frequently in neutral or positive contexts in liberal outlets, while terms like illegal immigrant are more common in conservative outlets. This would suggest a correlation between media ideology and the framing of refugees. Example 2. Collocation analysis in political discourse. A discourse analyst studying the framing of economic issues in political speeches might use collocation analysis to examine how often words like tax appear with terms like burden or relief. The analysis could show that conservative politicians more frequently use these collocations, framing taxation as a negative force, while progressive politicians might avoid such pairings and instead collocate tax with terms like investment or fairness, reflecting different ideological perspectives on taxation. Example 3. Sentiment analysis in social media discourse on climate change. A discourse analyst examining public reactions to climate change on social media might use sentiment analysis to assess how users express emotions around environmental policies. By statistically analyzing thousands of posts, the researcher might find that posts mentioning renewable energy often contain positive sentiment, while posts about government inaction display negative sentiment. This statistical insight could then be paired with a qualitative analysis to understand how emotional expressions shape discourse on climate change. Integrating statistical and qualitative approaches in discourse analysis. While statistical analysis provides valuable insights into patterns of language use, it is most powerful when combined with qualitative analysis. Statistical methods can reveal patterns that guide researchers toward deeper qualitative interpretation, helping to explain the significance of those patterns in social, cultural, or political contexts. Complementing quantitative findings with qualitative insights. Quantitative findings from statistical analysis often need to be contextualized through qualitative approaches, which provide deeper insights into the meaning and function of discourse. For example, a frequency analysis might show that a particular word is used frequently, but it is qualitative analysis that explains the context and function of that word in shaping discourse. Example: a frequency analysis of social media posts might show that the word freedom is highly frequent in discussions of healthcare reform. However, a qualitative analysis would explore how different groups define freedom, e.g., freedom from government intervention versus freedom to access healthcare, and how these definitions align with broader ideological frameworks. Using statistical analysis to test hypotheses. Statistical analysis can also be used to test hypotheses that arise from qualitative observations. For instance, a discourse analyst might qualitatively observe that certain groups tend to use more collective pronouns, like we or are, in their speech. Statistical analysis can then quantify this pattern across a larger dataset to determine whether the observation holds consistently across different contexts. Example: in an analysis of corporate leadership speeches, a researcher might hypothesize that women leaders use more collective language than men. Statistical analysis could be applied to test this hypothesis by counting the frequency of collective pronouns in speeches delivered by male and female leaders. Challenges of statistical analysis in discourse analysis. While statistical analysis can enhance discourse analysis, there are several challenges to its use. 1. Reductionism. Statistical analysis can sometimes reduce the complexity of discourse to mere counts and frequencies, potentially overlooking the nuanced ways in which language operates in context. Discourse is dynamic and multifaceted, and the meaning of a word or phrase can change depending on the situation, making it difficult to capture these subtleties through purely quantitative methods. Point 2. Interpretation of data. The interpretation of statistical findings requires careful consideration of the social, cultural, and political context in which the discourse occurs. Frequencies and collocations alone do not provide insights into why certain patterns occur or what they mean in a given social context. Point 3. Balancing quantitative and qualitative methods. Finding the right balance between quantitative and qualitative methods can be challenging. Over-reliance on statistical tools might obscure important qualitative insights, while neglecting quantitative analysis in large datasets might overlook important patterns. Combining both methods effectively requires careful planning and methodological rigor. Conclusion. Statistical analysis in discourse analysis provides a powerful tool for identifying patterns, trends, and relationships within large datasets, complementing qualitative methods by offering insights into linguistic frequency, distribution, and collocation. By integrating quantitative techniques such as frequency analysis, collocation analysis, and sentiment analysis, researchers can reveal how language reflects ideologies, power dynamics, and social structures. However, statistical analysis should be used alongside qualitative approaches to ensure a nuanced understanding of the discourse and to contextualize the quantitative findings within broader social, cultural, and political frameworks. When used effectively, statistical analysis enhances discourse analysis by revealing both the macro and micro-level patterns of language use in society. Frequently asked questions. What is statistical analysis in discourse analysis? Statistical analysis in discourse analysis involves using quantitative methods to examine patterns, frequencies, and distributions of linguistic features within discourse. It aims to complement qualitative analysis by identifying underlying patterns in language use that might not be immediately visible, helping researchers explore how language reflects social structures, ideologies, identities, and power dynamics. Why use statistical analysis in a primarily qualitative field like discourse analysis? Statistical analysis provides a way to systematically explore large datasets, uncover patterns, and support or challenge qualitative interpretations. While discourse analysis traditionally focuses on the interpretive aspects of language, statistical methods help quantify language use, revealing patterns and trends that enrich our understanding of how discourse operates in different social contexts. What are some roles of statistical analysis in discourse analysis? Statistical analysis in discourse analysis serves several roles, including identifying linguistic patterns, revealing recurring linguistic features, such as word frequencies, collocations, and syntactic structures, exploring power relations and ideology, uncovering how language use reflects power dynamics and ideologies by quantifying associations of terms or themes, comparing discursive strategies, analyzing how language use varies across different contexts, time periods, or groups to understand how discourse is tailored to specific objectives. What is frequency analysis in discourse analysis? Frequency analysis involves counting the occurrences of particular words, phrases, or linguistic structures within a corpus. This helps highlight what is emphasized or downplayed in a discourse. For example, in corporate social responsibility (CSR) reports, frequency analysis might show that terms like sustainability are used more frequently than profit, reflecting a company's public emphasis on social values. How does collocation analysis work in discourse analysis? Collocation analysis examines how frequently certain words appear together in a corpus, revealing how ideas are connected in discourse. It helps identify framing patterns or associations between concepts. For example, in news coverage of climate change, collocation analysis might reveal that climate crisis frequently appears with words like urgent or catastrophic, framing the issue as immediate and severe. What is concordance analysis, and how is it used? Concordance analysis shows all the instances where a particular word or phrase appears in a corpus, along with its surrounding context. It allows researchers to examine the usage of specific terms in various situations and identify patterns or shifts in meaning. For instance, a concordance analysis of the word freedom in political speeches might reveal different contextual meanings, such as civil liberties or economic freedoms. What is keenness analysis in discourse studies? Keenness analysis compares the frequency of words in one corpus against their frequency in another, identifying words that are statistically more frequent in one dataset. This technique helps uncover distinguishing linguistic features between sets of texts. For example, comparing speeches from two political campaigns might reveal that one candidate frequently uses words related to progress, while the other emphasizes tradition. How does cluster analysis contribute to discourse analysis? Cluster analysis groups similar items based on their characteristics. In discourse analysis, it can group words, phrases, or themes that frequently appear together, helping to identify clusters of ideas or discursive strategies. For example, a cluster analysis of social media posts on mental health might reveal terms like self-care and anxiety, often cluster, indicating a common framing of mental health issues in terms of individual coping strategies. What is the role of sentiment analysis in discourse analysis? Sentiment analysis classifies the emotional tone of a text as positive, negative, or neutral. While it is more common in computational linguistics, it can also be applied to discourse analysis to explore emotional expressions in discourse. For example, a sentiment analysis of online discussions about immigration might show that negative sentiment dominates policy discussions, while positive sentiment is more frequent in personal stories of migrants. How can statistical analysis uncover media bias in discourse? Statistical analysis can identify media bias by examining the frequency and context of terms used in media reports. For instance, a frequency and keenness analysis of news coverage on the refugee crisis across different media outlets might reveal that certain terms, e.g., migrant versus illegal immigrant, are used more frequently in specific contexts, reflecting ideological biases in framing the issue. How can researchers integrate statistical and qualitative approaches in discourse analysis? Researchers can integrate statistical and qualitative approaches by using statistical methods to identify patterns and guide qualitative interpretation. Quantitative findings, e.g., word frequencies, collocations, can direct researchers to areas for deeper qualitative exploration, providing a more nuanced understanding of discourse. For example, frequency analysis might identify commonly used terms, while qualitative analysis explains their contextual meanings and implications. What are some challenges of using statistical analysis in discourse analysis? Challenges include reductionism. Statistical analysis might reduce the complexity of discourse to mere counts, potentially overlooking nuanced meanings and the dynamic nature of language. Interpretation of data. Quantitative findings require careful interpretation within their social, cultural, and political contexts to understand their significance. Balancing methods. Researchers must balance quantitative and qualitative methods to avoid over-reliance on numbers or missing patterns in large datasets. Can statistical analysis test hypotheses in discourse analysis? Yes, statistical analysis can test hypotheses that arise from qualitative observations. For example, if a discourse analyst hypothesizes that women leaders use more collective language than men in speeches, statistical analysis can quantify the use of collective pronouns, e.g., we, are, across speeches by male and female leaders to test this hypothesis.